Well, I'm guaranteeing you that the show is going to end the same way it starts, with Jonas jolting awake and breathing really heavily, and you realize, like, oh shit, he's like processing that he has to go through all this shit before.
Yeah. So we were thinking maybe it would do it, like the loop would close and then that's it. It's just forever ongoing, or maybe it gets to that point and then once the audience realizes that it's like an endless loop, that's when something happens to break.
What I noticed, and I'm not sure if there's theories on this, was that Katerina is actually some type of trigger, because Bartosz said that Noah never told him about Katerina getting like the time machine device and changing something. So either Noah didn't tell him that information on purpose, or she's changing something new, because she went through the tunnel and there was some like big golden light in front of her.
Yeah, it was like a yellowish white light.
Yeah, and yellow is its color.
Well, but also white hole versus black hole is talked about by the clockmaker in the first episode.
I just noticed that when I was watching it this last time, and I had not heard any theories about that, so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. No, Katerina's definitely going to do some wild shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's.
I started liking her. I liked her redemptive art this season.
In fact, I kind of have a theory that when she goes through that tunnel, she goes to the other world, and she steals Mikkel from the other world, and that kind of kicks off the events of that world.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
But I don't know how exactly that would work.
It's interesting how Ulrich and Katerina are both like their number one priority is their children and not their partner.
So you hear Adam always talk about the reason things will occur the way they will occur every time is because people do not have free will, because they always will do what their desires demand of them. So the things they pursue dictate what they will do, and because they will always pursue that same thing, like Jonas is driven by Martha, right? Katerina is driven by finding her son Mikkel, right?
Claudia is driven by Regina.
Well, and Claudia says something really interesting too to Agnes in the bunker. How like Agnes was like, I'm on your side no matter what, and then Claudia was like, I know you're on my side, but blood drives your fate, or I can't remember exactly.
Our families shape us for our entire life.
I think Adam has a larger role to play in terms of how many families he's connected to.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think everybody is going to end up being connected. I mean, I think the theory is going to be Adam and Eve are the origin of literally every character in the show.
So, but what
and
about
they're like the first people.
And who? So Adam being Adam. Eve.
Well, for that theory, it would have to be Jonas, I assume.
Yeah.
Right. Or
and then Eve is
Martha.
Yeah.
But so my whole thing though is that like from the start with H.G. Tannhaus and his chit chats with Stranger Jonas is in the very first episode, their whole meeting is him saying like everybody thinks it's all dualism, good and bad, black and white, but because then he's talking about the Einstein-Rosen bridges, and he says basically like, but Einstein and Rosen didn't think of one thing. Instead of thinking about it dualistically, they should have been thinking about it in 3 dimensions. There's not just a top and a bottom, there's a middle as well. And so my theory is we've been presented so far with this whole, there's 2 worlds, there's an Adam and an Eve, and so my theory is there's going to be a third world. There's red, blue, and yellow, the 3 colors that are constantly...
And that'll also be the love triangle thing it connects in.
Because the whole, everything that we've seen in those trailers so far, like you were saying, is all episodes 1 and 2. So I think they're going to set up there's 2 universes, and that's what everybody thinks the whole time. And then like episode 4 maybe, because episode 4 and 5 are always like
the twist.
Crazy shit happens, is they're going to introduce a third world and be like, yeah, you guys are fucked.
Yeah.
I also think Elizabeth's going to play a lot bigger role too. I mean, I just don't know what, because I mean, we haven't really gotten any information from Elizabeth, even though she's been in a lot of scenes and like done stuff.
Right. And I'd love to know why she's all burnt and fucked up.
And like, what is this cause that she's leading? And I mean, we kind of know what it is, but like, I mean, and she has some kind of interaction with Noah, obviously, because she has the whole paradise is where you're going to type thing.
Yeah. Well, and I also wonder if the God particle portal thing that they're going through in the 2050s can be dialed into specific dates in the same way that atoms underneath the church can. Or if you just jump back to that earliest point of where it is.
I think it's possible, but unlikely.
Because Jonas didn't get to choose where he was going.
No,
when
he just got spit out in 19... And that's why I think the Sic Mundus cult in the 2050s exists in the first place, is to keep people from going through there so we don't just have scads of people from post-apocalypse jumping back to 1921.
That makes sense.
Although I think that's realistically what we're going to see. It's going to be a Noah's Ark style thing of all these people from the post-apocalypse are coming back to the early 1920s and founding Winden back then.
Oh,
Or like 1888
that
even.
portal in the post-apocalyptic future only goes back to 1921.
Maybe. I mean, we've only seen it used
no.
once
And that's
essentially,
what
and
happened.
that's all that happened.
Alex, I think you're saying that it could go as far back as the 1800s, like 1880.
Well, if you
Right.
were to bring a machine like one of the Tannhaus machines back to 1921, that machine jumps forward or backward 33 years. So you could just go backwards infinitely from wherever you start
and
from,
we
right?
do see middle-aged Jonas in what appears to be the 1880s in one of the trailers.
Oh, that could be.
Alternative Jonas.
He's got his dress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has
it's like even
combed
older.
over hair.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah.
And
I don't know that I've seen all of
I
the
don't think
season
I've
3
seen all of the
material
trailer,
yet, but
'cause-
yeah.
but I definitely buy that.
So and he would be one of the people who survived the apocalypse, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
along with all those other people in the photo of the Sic Mundus photo, the oldest thing in the show so far. You see Adam sitting there in the middle. You see Magnus.
Adam wearing a black top hat, very similar to the one Mikkel is wearing in the very first episode.
Oh, very interesting.
Which is fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there's a lot of black hat symbolism for people in the Sic Mundus cult. Pretty much everybody who's in Sic Mundus is wearing a black hat.
Yep.
That is a good question. How do they get?
Well, we don't know what.
How do they get Eric?
I read something about that was like really kind of like questioning how Helga did everything because he had to pull like
multiple bodies.
Mads.
Multiple.
Well, he had to pull like Mads through the 2020 door if he was going to be doing it. Because clear. Oh, actually, well, Mads gets
The timing of it as well.
Yeah.
Though, they do say something.
He's just kind of like
because it's like
the-
saying like how is Helga in all these times at one time because it'd be like jumping back and forth like several times in a couple.
Helga's
days.
kind of like the Igor to the story. He does a lot of like the heavy lifting,
Yeah.
and he doesn't really ask questions, and he just
Not
sort
until
of
he, not until he gets older.
Yeah,
you know,
he's-
once
Well,
he
because he's
realizes
being
what he-
Yeah.
because he was being told to do all these things by Noah, who basically took care of him for like 6 months after he got his head beat in.
Right.
All that stuff, which you find out
So-
season 2 later. Cut.
Which
Sorry.
we don't know. I think we know of at least 2 people that are there.
We know of
Yeah.
we know of one person that's there.
At this point,
At this point, we
in
don't
time-
know shit.
Yeah.
I think when Michael showed up, that clearly wasn't like a physical Michael.
No, I
it
think
was
it was
some
a
type of like
hallucination.
projection, like potentially from the alt world.
Interesting. So, episode 2 essentially, Mikkel is still trapped in 1986, really confused about what's going on. You could only imagine, what type of mental trauma that would cause on somebody. And Alex, whenever you're going to bring up the theory with Mikkel, I could totally imagine how not only this mental trauma, but then the subsequent pharmaceutical intervention that comes from his mother, I guess his adoptive mother,
Who
how
I
that
believe
messes
is
up with the
working for
mind.
Sic Mundus, but yes. I think
yeah.
I believe that Enos is working for Sic Mundus or a part of the Sic Mundus cult in some way, and that's why she. I think like almost all of the nurses in that hospital are part of Sic Mundus.
making sure that Mikkel follows the path.
I think that's a little far-fetched.
I don't
Alex,
believe
but
that.
Yeah,
Because of her reaction to when older Enos opens up the letter for the first time at like the given date that's written. There's like genuine surprise and agony. I don't think that she would have reacted that way if she.
Why is she drugging Mikkel?
Because she doesn't know how
he
to
has
handle
nightmares,
To make him
and
think
he
he's
thinks
from the
he's from the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's trying to get him to forget his past life or repress it essentially. And
That
and
seems
move
more
on.
nefarious than it would
I
just be
agree.
like on the surface.
Maybe, but you also like if you're giving her the benefit of the doubt, she's like a really sweet nurse who like finds this kid who's completely lost his way and wants to do best by him, and like the kid can't make it a night without these terrible nightmares.
So my theory on that actually is that Katerina is the one who makes the map.
And it could be.
I think those
completely
6 or 7 months that we don't see between season 1 and season 2, she's exploring and making that whole map.
That's interesting.
So how it ends up in Michael's studio, who knows?
Well, she might go back in time and he gets it into his studio at some point.
If she steals Mikkel and brings him to this universe and starts everything over.
That's interesting.
Well, because does she realize that Mikkel is Michael?
No, she has no idea.
She
knows at that point.
She knows at that point. Yeah.
I think so. Aren't those maps figured out by in this manner? Isn't it Ulrich using that map as an investigation to figure out where Mikkel went?
Yeah.
And
I don't think Ulrich
never sees the map. I don't think.
I'm pretty sure he does because he leaves the maps at the house after.
And that's
does he get the maps from?
The thing is,
the stranger's
Katarina
files.
Could have still.
She could have still in the 7 months.
Jonas obviously has them
from finding them in his studio.
Older Jonas. Older Jonas has them, right? And gifts them to younger Jonas. That's how Ulrich has them, and then Katarina has them. But you don't know.
Yeah.
What Katarina is that last person who has them, so like that could close the loop right there, or there could be more people in that.
But so Jonas finds those in Michael's
studio.
Studio, right? Doesn't Michael also have a ton of other crazy drawings that relate to this overarching phenomenon that is going on?
Well, I mean, there's a lot,
which makes me think that they might be from Michael, right? I mean, how would all of that stuff just be in his studio unless he's a pawn of the whole?
Right, but there's a lot of origin stories, so we don't really know how. Also,
there is a painting.
Right.
There is a painting that I think it's one of the first things we see. Back on episode 1, the beginning of the series, that is very, very similar to the form that the portal takes when it's
the big black god particle thing. Like almost all of Michael's painting, or almost all of Michael's paintings are paintings of that.
Right.
And where would he ever have seen that?
You're right. They're in the timeline. They're in the future and the past, but they're not in that timeline.
Yeah.
Wait, where would Michael have ever seen the God particle?
Yeah. Where would he have ever seen that?
He only ever traveled through
1986
through the tunnel. And
but you don't know what optically that looks like when you're in it.
Yeah, we do.
You know what it looks like from the outside.
It's just
Mikkel goes through the. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So he doesn't. Yeah.
Right.
Bottom line is he doesn't. He's never seen it, or we don't.
When would he have ever seen the God part? Exactly. I'm telling you. I'm just saying the whole Doppler family tree is foreshadowed by that wallpaper. Well, in episode 2, there's an interesting thing where Eric is being put into the chair again. But he, instead of watching the music video, the Nina music video, the Ergen V, Ergen Vo, Ergen Von, which is a fun any place, anytime, anywhere. There's all the songs that are played have a lot of.
I gotta call it every time I hear it. Right there.
Tons of 3 symbolism.
On the TV it says.
But when Eric is being put in episode 2, it's different thing on the TV. It's a.
It says it's about
Ten
black
House
holes
video
and time travel, and it says but at what price and how far will they go? It kind of says,
and it's HG Ten House doing a Bill Nye the Science Guy esque TV show, or a Cosmos esque TV show.
What age is he in that video?
He's an old man at that point.
Yeah,
but
the 80s.
But my question is, we've already seen Eric get put into the chair once and had the things closed on him, and a different thing was playing on the TV. So are we seeing a different world? Speaking of the Rider Bar thing, the commercial that we see at the beginning of season 3, the Rider Bar, there's the two things that are clapping together. So that's another symbolism of 2 hands closing in together, like
the clock.
Hands closing into the apocalypse. So it's just there's a lot of little symbolism parallels like that, because they mentioned something about the whole in class when the teacher is talking in class about Goethe's writing style, and that there's the coupling or doubling, and that it's a thematic thing. Characters in the novel will repeat things that other characters have done consciously or unconsciously, and that's very prevalent throughout the show, of characters doing something that another character had done at some other point in time in a very similar way.
Yeah, whether that's cheating on your spouse or
grabbing
traveling
the same
through
rock
time.
in the cave.
Yeah.
Little less.
When Egon dies, do we see a Rubik's cube in the?
I don't know if there's one in his house.
No, it's in her kitchen.
No, it's his. It's his house.
It's in his house.
Oh, is there a Rubik's cube in that scene?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's.
If there's a Rubik's cube in that scene, that'd be wild.
I'm also curious. How did the Nielsen house go from Tiedemann house to Nielsen house?
So there's a lot of house swapping in this show, which is very strange because the Dopplers live in that huge mansion. The huge mansion that becomes the hotel that Regina runs.
The older Dopplers, the younger
yes.
Dopplers. Like
The Dopplers
Greta
in
and
1950s, Greta and Bernd and their son Helga live in this huge mansion.
that becomes the wall
power plant.
I don't know though because the nuclear power plant doesn't exist yet, but they seem to have a lot of
They have
money
a lot of
anyway.
but they're like the lead investors.
Right.
We also don't know anything about Burnt's past, right? Like,
Yeah,
walking
we
around
only know him
right?
as a middle-aged man
With a
pushing
lot of
for the
money.
power plant.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a lot of money. And he also everybody in that scene when he's pitching the power plant is wearing black hats, which
in the
again Sigmundus.
outside in the
All the people that he's pitching to are all wearing black hats.
Yeah.
Which he's also wearing a black hat.
We're first taken to the 50s
In episode 7 maybe.
I think it's episode 7 or 8. But that's I never noticed the hat thing, and I think you're really onto something there.
Yeah.
Because everybody who has had some sort of relation to Sigmundus, and an obvious one such as Adam or Noah, both of them have the black hat.
Oh yeah, Agnes wears a black hat in season 2 when she goes
Agnes,
to meet
another obvious one.
when she goes to meet Claudia.
Mikkel.
Mikkel's wearing a black hat in episode 1 when he's in
First time you
his
see him.
skeleton
I think you might
outfit.
be onto something there, Alex.
There's a lot there, man.
Why are we taking to the 50s as in terms of just like are we
I'm sorry.
as
To
a
answer your sorry to interrupt you there. To answer your question, Andrew, I think the reason that the Nielsens take over that house is because when Agnes Nielsen comes in the 1950s to the town, she is staying at the house with the
she's staying
with the
Either
tea.
both Aegon and Doris
like Dark.
Tiedemann. Something has to happen to either both of them or one of them, and they have to move out of that house
Right.
for a reason.
Well, yeah. So I mean, I don't know.
But then don't we
I
see
think-
Hannah
I
and
think there's-
Aegon in the
I think
new?
there's a
Yeah,
clear
exactly.
connection
I
between
think it's another affair.
Agnes
Yeah.
and Ulrich's father, who, like as a child version of himself, move into the house. They definitely end up with that house, and that's how Ulrich gets the house.
Yeah.
I don't think it's very clear yet how that exactly transpired.
It's interesting. We literally never see Tronte in that house.
No,
it's
they're
only,
just
like,
walking.
outside.
We only see Yana in that house.
Yeah.
We've never seen Tronte.
Tronte
in there.
and Claudia's friendship, I
Affair.
enjoy how it's been for like they've been close since like children.
She makes him, show her his willy, right?
Yeah. What interesting tidbit right there. Actually, that's in the
That's such a
intro
weird
of
scene.
the show. Intro of season 2
one of those
contains a scene of Tronte pulling down his pants.
Dude hangs dong.
The thing that's weird though is that it's really not.
7.
It's just not sexual at all though. Like
No.
neither of them
No.
seem that interested in it. It's just like a thing that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of weird.
So they're Catholic.
Yeah, must be. Yeah.
Nailed it.
Nice.
But yeah, what I think, Chris, you hit the nail on the head. That's what we're like kind of just thinking about, like how we don't know, but like how would that have actually happened? Because and Jordan, you brought up a good point in that if our listeners have seen the new trailer, we know that Hannah is with Aegon, and Hannah is
At some point.
notorious homewrecker.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well,
I
and-
think that could have some implications.
Well,
And there's foreshadowing of him getting with her as well earlier in the season
Yeah.
when he's just talking to Daniel Convald, his partner at the police station.
Right.
Daniel is saying to him like,
Yeah, dude.
"Bruh, marriage isn't what they sold us. Like once
Yeah,
these
also he
ladies
likes-
have kids, they are married to them, not to us. So like you gotta seek out. There's buds to be picked out here, is what he says essentially.
Yeah.
And we never see Doris Tiedemann, like an older Doris Tiedemann. We only know
her
Doris
as
Tiedemann
one
in the
age.
50s.
Yeah.
But
Which is interesting that he says that because
he should know. Middle-aged Jonas should know. Like he.
I have a
doesn't
lot of
to-
questions about middle-aged Jonas because he seems to not know a lot of things that the younger Jonas that we've seen has learned.
Yeah. perhaps the middle-aged Jonas
It's from an alternate world.
is exactly.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised.
Yep.
Or that he's not Jonas at all. The ultimate reveal.
There's no way.
It'd be too much.
Can we go to the question is, when is the first time Mikkel meets Hannah?
Ooh, that's a very good question.
Yeah, because this is widely discussed. So we have that scene that we were just talking about, where Hannah comes up to him on the bench and starts talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have another scene. I'm not quite sure which episode it's in.
It is later in season 1,
where
they're next to the vending machine.
Yes.
inside the hospital.
Yeah, and who knows which meeting it, because we don't hear them talk in that meeting. Who knows which meeting is the real one, or if are they both their first meetings in a different worlds?
Yep.
Wow.
Because the outside meeting, there's a lot of like yellow light because they're out in the sunlight. But then in the hospital meeting, when they're in next to the vending machine, all the walls are blue. Like all the walls in the hospital are blue.
And you think those are just signals that they might be different timelines?
Different
I
worlds,
firmly
different
believe
meetings.
that each color corresponds to a timeline. Corresponds to a universe. So there's like the yellow world, there's the red world, and there's the blue world.
Can you give me like a different example of a time that like colors?
There's a lot of color symbols.
I mean,
when
Jonas
young
is
Jonas
like,
and old Jonas are talking to each other when he's trapped in the bunker. The inside of the thing is blue, and the outside of it when he's talking to him is yellow. And
it's actually red.
Or red.
Yeah.
The wallpaper is
the wallpaper.
all those 3 colors as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
Jonas is always wearing a yellow jacket. Mikkel's always wearing a red jacket. The stranger's always wearing a blue jacket.
I'm not suggesting that there isn't color symbolism. I'm asking, can you give me an example of like another time where there were basically like 2 very similar interactions that may have occurred in different timelines because of the color backdrop?
I don't think there's another one as obvious as
the
Mikkel meeting Hannah.
Yeah. Because I was always under the impression that the Mikkel Hannah interaction inside of the hospital was like oh yeah, like it's you again.
It could have been
because
Yeah,
there's
but
there
the thing
seems
is,
to
we
be-
don't hear any of their
No,
dialogue.
but there
so
does
who's
seem to be
say?
kind of and I don't know if that's the case, but it always seemed to be kind of like an easier, faster interaction than the initial one where it's like, hi, I'm Mikkel, hi, I'm Hannah. They sort of go into it as if they've been familiarized.
Totally plausible.
I agree.
Yeah, but there's we just don't know.
Well, real quick, I was just saying, what a failure you are if your future self can't even kill you. Like, they're from the future.
Story of his life,
Right?
man.
Yeah,
older
no,
and
that's true.
frailer.
Yeah.
And he's
Well,
been through it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got the shit beat out of him when
wait,
he was like
that's
6 years
totally
old.
with a rock.
He knew he would die basically. Oh man, that one's.
Wait,
that
he
one's,
knew he would die.
In the car crash?
Younger Helga, after
he-
that crash,
right.
understands who tried to kill him and who died.
Because he runs, right?
Yet, no, the oldest Helga dies trying to kill middle-aged Helga.
But
Middle-aged Helga knows that, and yet still does it in the future to try to stop the cycle.
I don't know how
I
much
think it's
middle-aged
the
Helga
continuous
knows though,
cycle.
because I think you're supposed to assume that like after that car accident,
He's a little
really
messed
has even more mental issues than he already did,
Well,
because
and
he pretty
gets-
much stays in the
and
hospital
he gets
after
dementia
that.
too. He gets
Yeah.
like they say
Yeah.
that he actively has dementia, so he's forgetting stuff.
Yeah.
And then
does middle-aged Helga know the man who hit him? Does he
Yes.
know his
He
identity?
walked-
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he left. He got out of the car and he
And
saw
walked
that
up
it
to the
was like
driver's
the
seat.
older him.
Yeah.
That he
Also,
got.
Is middle-aged Jonas at this time? Are you saying that he's under the impression that like he's the only one that is involved in this time loop?
I think he's not aware of Ulrich's
Yeah.
involvement in the time loop.
Is he aware of anybody else's involvement at this
Probably.
time?
I mean, I would think Claudia's and
Right.
Noah's and Adam's and some key players like that. But I don't think he's fully aware of the depth of it. And I think Adam is fully aware of what's going on. And not to get too far ahead into theories, but like who created that notebook that can predict the future? I have a couple characters in mind. First and foremost, Adam, then some other ones. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's just because Jonas goes through all these time periods and learns what's happening step by step. He's actually the one who writes the book. It was just a nice little example of him learning more about the things that are unfolding in front of him.
There's also the interesting aspect of, like, I'm curious to know what happens in the 6-month time period between things.
Oh, yeah.
Because for Jonas, he gets taken by old Claudia, and that's like his training period that we like don't. Well, that's actually the year following, but that's his training period before she gets killed by Noah. And then there's also the 7 months that Helga's missing, with Noah being his father figure, essentially.
The time from November 12th to June
in all the
to June
timelines
20th
is such an important thing that has been kind of skipped over.
Well,
leaving us in
and
the
the picture of Sigmundus from 1921, that picture was taken on January 8th,
Yeah,
so it's right in the middle of that time period. So I'm thinking maybe part of this season will be in between.
That goes into
season 3.
Yeah, part of season 3 will be between 1 and 2
I think
timeline-wise.
season 3 is gonna definitely illuminate some stuff in terms of missing
hope so.
gaps of timelines.
That would
right?
also lead to the theory of having 3 worlds, because you're at 3 different time periods.
In 3
We
seasons.
have the information that Adam's time machine can go anywhere. Or supposedly.
I mean, he does travel to. I mean, he does travel 98 years, so ostensibly it works,
Right.
because he goes from 21 to 2019.
He goes to the June of 2019.
Oh,
So he only
Adam?
goes 98 years.
Jonas.
He doesn't go 99 years.
But my theory is, gosh,
Wait, theory.
I
for
can't.
season
I can't.
3?
Be,
Yeah,
I can't because it has to. Well, I guess I could talk about season 2 stuff, but it's from the episode where from episode 6 where they actually
season
go back.
2, episode 6.
Yeah, season 2, episode 6, where they actually go back to 2019. So when 2020 Jonas goes to 2019, and oh gosh, I had it. What did I have? Because they're riding on the bikes. Adam didn't just send Jonas to 2019 in our universe, but it was to another universe. The original universe is blue. Our Jonas is wearing a yellow jacket and arrives and initiates Michael's suicide in the blue universe, which intermingles the blue and yellow universes. And then Katerina and Marta in that timeline are also wearing red. And so, but Marta's wearing like a pink, so it's only slightly red because white is like the color of innocence. So my theory is that like the red universe is going through the Marta's time and going through Marta's family, and the yellow universe is going through Jonas's family, and they're both interacting with the blue universe.
I'm gonna have to hear more about that.
Yeah,
Alex.
there's a lot to it, but it's
right,
it's a whole
right now
thing.
that's a little over my pay grade.
The book that Marta is reading, the Ariadne book, is yellow.
That is just one thing about that color.
Just everything.
With Marta like wearing white initially.
Yep.
The last time we see Marta in season 2, she's wearing black.
Yes, Marta's wearing black a lot in season
while
Jonas is gone.
Yeah.
The whole time that Jonas is gone from their universe or their time, whatever, she's wearing black.
Yeah.
Her and Jonas are both wearing white on the night that they have sex for the first time.
Nice.
So that's like innocent, virginal.
Yeah, I think it's symbolic of not a coming of age, but just a intellectual awakening, maybe, or the loss of innocence, as you were saying before.
Right, because Adam says that all people live 3 lives. The first one ends with the loss of naivete.
Yeah.
The second one ends with the loss of innocence, and the third ends with life itself. Loss.
Can I just ask, when we were talking about how the portal exists within the tunnel, the same question posed for the portal within the bunker.
Yeah, good question.
Is how does that? It's obviously
Where
it
is
takes
that
like
sending
a very
Like, why is any of this
large
occurring?
event for it to
right.
happen.
It takes a large event. It only opens at certain times, and maybe it's because that's where the experiments happen.
Right, and maybe it only works if there's like some activity going on in the tunnel beneath the bunker, because that's the whole thing, is that the crossing of the tunnel is directly
But I
below
would
the bunker.
I would counter that point just saying it's just because that's the way it's always been, and it has to be like that. There is no significance to any of the events that are occurring
Other than that
besides the
they are
fact that
causally
they are,
linked to what
Well,
I think
happens
that's
next.
the only thing.
I
that's
agree.
occurring.
Is the Sigmundus God particle twin or whatever supposed to be directly underneath the bunker and the tunnel as well? Or is
The
that just
one
a separate
there's
place?
one of them exists in
the nuclear facility.
the nuclear power plant, and the other one exists in the cave below the church. So there's an interesting dichotomy of science versus religion also that's going on.
And then that would make 3 different locations for time travel as well.
Well,
Because
the God particle in 2020 is the God particle that's in 2053 though, because they're both in the power
I know,
plant.
but there's the God particle that's in
tunnel,
Sic Mundus.
and the bunker.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, the Sic Mundus God particle, the God particle at the
Right.
facility.
But I think the only reason they built the God particle at the church is because the tunnel wasn't working for 6 months out of the year.
Yeah, Adam couldn't stand not being able to.
I guess that's
travel.
Because I assume if he goes back to 1888, he'd be trapped there, right? So that's how they all get older, right? That's why Magnus and Francisca are middle aged, just because they lived from 1888 to 1921 building the God particle
It's
and
a very
that whole
interesting
church.
point. If you think about how old they are in certain timelines, you start to think about where they aged, in what time period, and sometimes it's not the 33 years immediately preceding that moment, you know.
Well, and that's the same thing with and this is season 2 again. When Jonas comes to pick up Claudia from 1986. He's been there for a year.
Yeah. Because he just stayed after he got sent to 2019. He stayed for a full year. Well, right.
But he's there a year later, basically.
He was like training.
He said that he was trained up by older Claudia.
I think you see a scene, I forget what it is, 6 months into that training. It's just a single scene, and then you see him, 6 months after when he's saying.
You think there's like relevance to that fact?
To the scene in the middle?
Yeah, the fact that like you see something occur and then you see like a little tidbit of their training and then you see what occurs 6 months after that. Like what you were just saying.
Yeah, I think it's mainly just to show that
he's spending a year learning about all this stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because he basically says like once he picks up the young Claudia, because she doesn't know anything about what's going on, and he says like I've been trained for a whole year by you. And like and now so it's basically old Claudia training him, and then he trains young Claudia, and then it's kind of the same cycle.
Like just a whole nother reiteration of the idea that ideas are passed through time.
Yeah, the bootstrap kind of thing.
That's going to be I think that's going to be a huge thing.
It's just been, as we've been talking about for the past couple hours.
They've referred to the loophole.
And that's how some ideas passing through time are a consistent theme throughout the show. People passing through time, consistent theme throughout the show.
Well, and that's how Charlotte's book is
we could go count ad nauseum the little instances of that occurring, right?
Oh,
like, every little factual details like that, and we could go on just recounting occurrence after occurrence of it occurring. And replay it would almost be exactly as if we're just clicking play on the episode and watching the show.
I've long contemplated that you could watch the show out of order and it would make just as much sense. You could just watch the episodes in whatever order you wanted to.
Well, I mean, that leads to the whole thing that Peter was talking about once old Claudia died. He was like talking about how the book had so much information in it that they still don't understand, which is clearly because there's been so many cycles. There's so many things that either don't matter anymore or they don't know yet.
Well, because Tronta says to Peter, like, they're like, oh, why are we trusting her or whatever? And he goes like, everything that's happened in this book has come true. Everything that she said up to this point has come true. And he goes, yeah, but like half the fucking pages are missing. Like, what don't we know? You know?
I think you mentioned very early on that it seems like information is passed from cycle to cycle.
I agree.
And that
because
but what do you mean by cycle? So what do you when we use the term cycle? What are you referring to?
So for example, it's just Miko going back in time.
Well, the cycle is like the larger construct of like where it starts and ends essentially, and the start being the end. There's no real like firm construct of what the cycle is.
Yeah, my understanding is that there is
or how
no
long
understanding
it is
of what cycle means. So
right.
To reference, this is why the cycle's starting or stopping or when it is. We have no basis in
and they've
declaring any of.
They've introduced the idea of some kind of loophole, both Claudia and Adam have said a thing about a loophole, and Jonas has believed that and said, "Oh, I believe in this loophole, whatever."
What drives it.
Right, and so I think because of the way that the time machine is developed from, like he has all those like the progressively more technologically advanced versions of the time machine, it makes me think that there's the cycles as they go. Every time it resets, there's some way of like transferring information as a bootstrap paradox from one to the next, and so like they spend however long the cycle is getting as far as they can with the time machine, bring all that information back to here, start from there, build up their information, and that's why each successive time machine is slightly better.
You guys can't see Alex, but he's doing like a motion with his hands where he's like,
doing
like
so much hand
the
work.
Before and after, like moving the hands from left to right to make it very clear what he's saying. But unfortunately, you guys don't have the visual
Audio
confirmation.
medium.
It's bad radio.
We'll put that in the video.
But yeah, so I think that's there's some, I don't know, the loophole has to exist somehow. There has to be some way of passing information back. Now, I guess you could argue there's always time travel, so they could always be passing information back. I do think that Adam is manipulating Jonas in a lot of ways, to the point that I honestly don't really believe that he's Jonas. Why would
he
why
lies
would
to him when he sends him back.
He lies to him constantly. We've seen him betray Noah previously. We know that he like doesn't necessarily respect the people that work for him, or that they're less important to him. They can be necessary sacrifices if need be. And
my question, I mean, this is again season 2 stuff, but if he's trying to create Jonas to, like, if he's trying to make Jonas become Adam, why would he be trying to destroy the tunnel, and how would he be making, like,
because that's how it happened before.
I know, but why does he want it to happen before if he's trying to destroy it? What his goal is destroy the timeline.
Well, his goal is to create a world outside of time. And so I think the larger goal that Adam is working towards is making everything in the entire world of Winden be a bootstrap paradox of itself, so that literally nothing has any origin and the entire like town is outside of time. And that's why Claudia and younger Jonas are like trying to change subtle things, so every time the loop resets, it's not exactly the same as it was before.
How
so
funny.
They can't get out of this.
Yeah, how
So do
funny
you
would
think
that
that's
be?
where the
loop.
St. Christopher medal came from on the beach?
We don't know that. Yeah.
The St. Christopher medal on the beach, we've seen images for season 3 of Hannah having the St. Christopher necklace. And at the time that Jonas finds the St. Christopher necklace in the sand on the beach, it's right after Bartosz has told like a scary ghost story about the woman who drowned in the lake. And so I think there's some theorizing that Hannah maybe is the one who drowns in the lake, and it's her necklace that washes up. The St. Christopher necklace is what washes up. Also, the church that they all go to is St. Christopher Church. So
And
that's
St. Christopher
how
is the patron saint of travel.
Yeah, how
Yes.
funny would that be if, like, at the end of the day, all of these like ideas of transferring knowledge back in time is the only reason why they're in the mess in the first place.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? Where again, the idea, the theme of the show is that time travel is only possible because of the connection of future and past. But again, that's only able to occur because of the information being sent back.
Right.
And so
all these people are kind of...
Yeah, all of these people are kind of, as you say, just like reiterating everything over and over again.
Right.
And it's almost impossible to connect the dots fully until that third season comes out.
Right.
And even then, we may be lacking some information.
Well, and that's where my
We're gonna have
skepticism comes from.
Yeah, we're gonna have to fill in the dots ourselves and kind of be imaginative with it.
Right. Well, because even
so,
Adam
like,
says, like, when he goes to kill Martha at the end of season 2, he specifically says,
oh, we're
like,
that far now. Okay.
well, he specifically says, like, all the pieces are in place, like everything is where it needs to be to start the new cycle. So he seems to think that everything is set up to be wherever the start of the cycle is or the end of the cycle is. I also kind of have a theory that the cycles are different every time, because like at the end of season 1, when they're doing the whole apocalypse thing, Regina and Alexander get out of their car because the lights are all flickering or whatever, and they see a black hole forming.
Yeah.
As
Above the
like
power plant.
as like a apocalypse black hole, and it's like in that the montage scene, like we see the Ryder commercial that Magnus and Francisca are watching, and it's like the two Ryder bars clicking
So
together.
this
like
supports
the
what
apocalypse.
idea again?
That was one apocalypse of one cycle,
And that was in 2020.
and that was in
2019.
I-
2019 December.
I think
because
there's
nobody
no
ever
doubt-
mentions that again.
There's no doubt in my mind that there are 3 different universes going on in this thing.
I agree.
I mean, again,
There have to be.
we could
There's a big blue
recount.
background. when
We
they
could
do it, too,
recount
just
scene for
color.
scene where that is occurring if we wanted to, right? We could provide a perfectly clear description of the thing that occurred in the episode. It would be as almost as if we hit play and the viewer is watching the episode, right? But as I think our viewers know that these themes are so prevalent, I don't like to recount them would be almost a disservice. I would say
To seeing
just
them,
go watch it.
Just go rewatch
Just
it with
go
these
rewatch
theories
it
in
with
mind.
these theories in mind.
Exactly.
Exactly, Alex.
Watching it specifically, looking for colors or times on clocks or like references
Please,
to the future.
listeners,
all of
like
it,
if you're listening to this and thinking about doing a rewatch of Dark, especially season 1, because
Especially
that's what
prepping
we've been
for season 3,
focusing on, in prep for season 3, really go back, rewatch some of the episodes or all of them. I say all of them. To keep an eye out for those time matches that Alex has been mentioning, or those color matches that Alex has been mentioning. Keep in mind all those little hints that, yes, things are occurring on different timelines, but are they occurring in different universes?
Right.
And then these families, right? These 4 main families.
But it's kind of 3.
It's
though,
kind of how intertwined are they, right? And how do they fit together perfectly? If you can imagine that this world is just a recursive loop occurring again and again and again. And we've given 100, if not more, specific examples throughout the show
of mirroring and repetition of certain themes.
Go back and watch those scenes, or just go back and watch the entire episode and season and both seasons and keep an eye out for these themes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and also make sure you listen to the intro and outros, because those, the monologues or whatever that are at the beginning and end of each episode have, it's not every episode, but the ones that there are there, they have very strong allusions to universes and the black holes and all the different.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing, like, there are no wasted
because it's always either
scenes
Adam,
or words.
Helga.
There's no wasted dialogue. There's no wasted anything. Everything means something in the show.
It's always
throwaway
Adam,
stuff.
Helga, or someone who knows about the cycles talking and saying things that are very illusionary.
Yeah. Hopefully season 3 lives up to the expectations that we've set. I mean,
don't
very
even say
high,
that. You know,
very high bar. I
how
know
dare
we're
you.
watching it in almost one go, and we'll be coming at you live with some episode by episode reactions.
Sort of live.
But at the same time, like, please go watch these episodes again with these theories in mind. I'm sure you've heard them. If you haven't heard them, take a gander, see if you kind of agree or disagree. Please write back, letting us know if we missed anything, if we made an error, if we're not seeing something, or you have a different theory. We'd love to hear from you. And
our
we're
email,
going to add it into the.
Yeah, I mean, we can drop it in. We can drop it in post or
Okay.
something.
I mean, I can also
You
say
can
it,
just you can just say it like into your desktop microphone
sure.
and say like, oh, the
Yeah.
Patreon, the whatever, the
I'll do that,
YouTube
yeah.
channel,
I can do
the
that.
email.
We just might discuss your theory on here between us, and so
Yeah,
let
please
us
send
know.
us emails and maybe we can talk
Yeah.
about your specific things or look for them when we're watching season 3.
absolutely. So, any final thoughts on season 1 recap?
I think I have said everything I
Yeah,
can possibly
pretty burned.
imagine. Yeah.
So there's another recurring theme of people getting what they deserve. It's a big thing in season 2 as well, of Claudia saying to Egon, the world doesn't deserve you. Ulrich saying that I got what I deserved, or everybody gets what they deserve. There's a lot of what people deserve talk.
And this kind of some insight I'm gaining after you read that quote again. Claudia, right? She at this point, after watching both seasons, she at this point is by no means a good character. right?
No.
It could all turn out that Adam is actually, like, Jonas is actually just a pawn in all of this, and Adam is controlling everything, because Noah is speaking to Bartosz, saying Jonas gets what he deserves. But Noah knows that Jonas turns into Adam. So I don't think Noah would be saying that about Adam, younger version of Adam, right? Saying, oh, he gets what he deserves. So that, Alex, again, maybe pushes towards Adam not necessarily being Jonas in the end.
Yeah.
He does,
Yeah.
but he does name Mikkel by name as well. And so he's also
Right,
saying
which is an
Mikkel
interesting
would be a
thing. He
pawn,
says
so
Jonas, Mikkel, the children, they're all necessary chess moves on whatever.
So
But
maybe Adam
the
is-
moving of Mikkel is still a chess move, regardless of
it's
who
true.
Adam is.
It's true.
Yeah.
But
well,
he
when
does,
then also
do
I had another thing.
Do you think do you think Adam knows about different dimensions?
I think he
different realities.
must.
Yeah, I think.
Or does
I think he
put yourself
does.
in his shoes? Would you still kill Marta, thinking that, or we don't really know what his true motivations are, but
I think because Jonas is Adam definitely knows about the multiple universes.
But do you also think that the new time travel device, the circular
The
one,
apple.
is that
Adam
what-
and Eve, the
okay.
apple.
Is
Apple.
the first time travel device that they have that creates, like, not creates the alternate world, but you're able
allows
to
them
travel
jump through it.
to travel between them. So all the worlds may have been different up into, or may have been separate from each other up into a certain point, and then now they're all kind of collapsing upon one another.
So that kind of leads into the. It plays into also the color theory that I have, but that the blue and yellow world essentially does time travel. Like, all their stuff is time travel related. And the red world is universe traveling instead of time traveling. And so that's how, like, everything gets intertwined, is that one is a whole time fuckery thing, and then, like, the red world is spilling over by traveling worlds instead of times, and causing it to be even more fucky than it would be.
Nice, yeah. I could see something like that going on in the background.
The reason I have the whole theory of the worlds being split up the way they are has to do with the prophecy painting that's in Adam's bunker, but is also in the book that Elizabeth finds in Tannhouse's thing, because it has one world all in light in the center, and then a world to the left, that the left half of that world is all in darkness, and a world to the right, and the whole right half of that world is in darkness. And so in the right world, it's like just a red continent, like a red outlined continent. And in the left world, there's a blue and yellow outlined continent. And they're both, like, kind of equator views of the worlds. And then the middle one is being shown from the North Pole down. And you see that all three continents, the red, blue, and yellow one, are, like, situated around that North Pole.
And on top of that, it's a man and a woman
Yes.
blowing from each side, kind of signifying Adam and Claudia, or Adam and Martha.
Yeah.
Adam and Eve, obviously.
Or
but
Jonas
no.
and Marta. Or,
yeah.
Or Mikkel and Claudia.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, if you've been listening over the past couple hours to our discussion, I think it's pretty obvious that the color theory that Alex has been kind of introducing and pushing throughout is a good one and makes sense. And I'm very excited to see it play out in season 3. Another one of Alex's theories that he's been telling me about is having to do with who Adam is. And he first showed me this theory maybe a year ago, and I've rewatched the season at least 2 times since hearing that theory. And Alex, go into who Adam could potentially be and why you believe that.
So there are a couple. There's 2 main candidates, I think, other than Jonas, because obviously you can take at face value that Adam is telling Jonas the truth the whole time.
Honestly, I think to assign it probability, I think it's like 70% chance Adam is Jonas. It just lines up very well.
It would be really hard to justify a lot of things.
If it was Bartosz or like something like, I mean, I think Bartosz is probably the next closest person to potentially.
Bartosz is certainly up there. It would be an alternate Bartosz though, but yes.
Yeah, but I think it has. But I think like pretty like 70%.
Yeah, 70%
makes sense. To
what
be
about
John.
Mikkel?
Yeah, so Mikkel is my main theory only because it's the one that I heard first. Now my roommate is actually the one who first brought up the like Bartosz is Adam to me in a way that made sense because I had seen it before, but I hadn't actually like
dug into it.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. But like the more I think about it, the whole series like really hinges on like tons of love triangles. There's love triangles all throughout, whether it's Doris Tiedemann, Agnes Nielsen, and Egon Tiedemann back in the 50s, or it's Jana, Tronta, and Claudia in the 80s, or Ulrich, Hannah, and Katerina in 2019. So there seems to be
these love triangles exist,
recurring love triangles, and you
series.
see the children's love triangle in season 1 of Jonas, Bartosz, and Marta, obviously, and so.
Why does that point towards Bartosz?
So in the first scene that Jonas, or in the first scene that Adam is introduced, when he's like talking to Noah, like asking him if everything's set up, he asks like, "Did you like deal with Bartosz or whatever? Did he get all suspicious like he does? Like, yeah, he's always been naive by nature, and so there's interesting like Adam knows a lot about Bartosz. Now, obviously, that could just be because him and Jonas were close friends, but there's that, and plus, like if Bartosz is trying to manipulate Jonas and kind of destroy his life by giving him misinformation, being like fully disguised as a burnt up man, essentially, and manipulating the way things play out so that he can ultimately be with Marta instead of Jonas would be like his main motive. Like, I don't know how much else there is to support it because I found out about this after my most recent rewatch, so I didn't really watch it with that in mind.
There's one more supporting piece of evidence that I could see, but then I would also like to introduce another thing that kind of refutes it. One piece of evidence that I see supporting it is Adam's apparent love for Martha. Mm-hmm. It's very clear that Adam cares a lot about Martha, and the only two characters maybe that you could see having some sort of deep, not only brotherly and sisterly love, but like, sexual desire love is Jonas and Martha, but then obviously Bartosz.
Yeah.
He loves Martha. He really was, as a child, was constantly like he dated her for a while, then tried to like beat up Jonas for like hooking up with her, and like constantly has this interest in her, and so it makes sense on that frame. The one thing I would push back on is we've established that at least one Bartosz dies.
Yeah, in the 20s.
In the 20s.
Probably. We don't. It's not confirmed.
So
I mean, like the
because of the
actor confirmed it. Like
No,
when
Noah
the young
stabbed.
Noah,
the actor confirmed it is the only thing.
Yeah, that actor who played that guy on the Instagram basically said like posted a picture of him like doing whatever, and it was like hashtag dark, hashtag Bartosz, hashtag whatever, and so you're like, fuck, that guy's Bartosz.
Oh wow, that's a big spoiler.
Yeah, pretty big spoiler. I mean.
But like realistically, if there's alternate worlds, like even if that Bartosz dies, it could be the alternate Bartosz that's like super interested in alternate Martha, and that's the whole thing. And then our universe's Jonas would be the interloper.
Are we under the assumption that the alternate worlds are separate the entire time? Like, not that 3 alternate worlds broke off at a certain point from one world? Like a kind of like a trident type thing? Like one world was going and then it broke off into 3 worlds at some point?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know that there's like hints towards there being one world originally, or that like we're leading towards all 3 of these worlds collapsing. But I think there definitely are going to be 3 worlds, not 2, because
one's the red and just the red world. The other is the blue and white, blue and yellow, and then the final is a culmination of the three
of all three.
And not only that, but Tannhaus talks about there's the you can say it better than I. You know it better than I do.
Yeah, I don't have the quote off the top of my head. I mean, I have it in my notes somewhere, but off the top of my head, he basically says like our thinking has always been governed by dualism, good and bad, light and shadow, up and down. But like the thing that even Einstein didn't think of when they proposed the whole Einstein-Rosen bridge thing was that there isn't just two dimensions, but three dimensions. There's not just up and down, but also a middle. There's not just past and present, or not just past and future, but also present.
Yeah.
And so the idea of like both Sigmundus and Claudia both doing this whole like, there's two sides fighting for time travel, the light and the shadow. Like, I think that's a fundamentally flawed premise for them to be starting from.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of think that if Jonas is thinking that because Claudia is thinking it, and Claudia learned it from Jonas, and it's kind of like a feedback loop. If Jonas originally learned that from Adam, maybe Adam is trying to manipulate Jonas and like has set him on this like false path on purpose to like send him even deeper and further into this labyrinth.
I think there's a lot of credibility to the idea that the Adam that is telling Jonas what to do is Jonas from the other universe, and Claudia is who's trying to tell the Jonas we know what to do is Claudia from a different universe.
That could be interesting.
And both Claudia and Adam are trying to keep their respective worlds alive. And then the third world that Claudia says, "Oh, I've seen a world without Jonas, and it's not good." That's the one in the middle, and I could imagine that the one in the middle, somebody like a Regina, doesn't exist, and that's why Claudia says it's not good.
Oh, that could be, and that she's trying to manipulate him in the same way, but towards her ends.
Towards her ends.
I like that.
Something along those lines where both groups are bad because they're trying to make sure that their own timelines are stay intact, that their own desires are fulfilled.
Yeah.
Right? But then the one in the middle is the quote unquote like one that should be like
where
the reality.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because you also get that line of Adam and Sigmundus are trying to create a new world, and me and Claudia, because it's Jonas saying that, like, we are trying to save this one. And so there's that idea of like foregoing one world for another or something like that.
Yeah.
I guess I can lay out the Mikkel is Adam theory. Because I've hinted at it several times. I've mentioned where some of the evidence is, but I guess I can kind of go through it a little bit deeper now. So if we are watching the show with the presumption that Mikkel is Adam, there are lots of little references that you can pick out. In the very first episode, when Mikkel is introduced as one loving Houdini and being an escape artist, which will come up several times, he's wearing a black top hat with his like outfit, and he says that that's like his magician outfit. And when you see the picture of Sigmundus in 1921, Adam, who's sitting in the middle of everybody, is also wearing like a black top hat. And I think those are the only two people we see wear that style of top hat in the show.
Yeah.
And black hats consistently are like
Sigmundus material.
Yeah. Yeah. Heavy Sigmundus symbolism there. When Mikkel travels back to the 80s and is meeting with Egon for the first time, Egon, who has consistently been set up as like this guy who fundamentally doesn't understand that time travel is all around him, has this unfinished Rubik's Cube on his desk. And Mikkel sits down at the desk after Aegon leaves and solves it in like 2 seconds. And that Rubik's Cube thing comes back in the scene where old Ulrich comes and finds Mikkel, and they have their like OJ drink and have their hug before Egon breaks them up again. Mikkel has a Rubik's Cube in that scene as well. So that's just kind of like if Egon can't solve it and he's like the guy who clearly doesn't understand time, and Mikkel solves it super easily, maybe he's like the guy who fundamentally understands time on another level. Also, Mikkel's pajamas have the red, blue, and yellow spaceships on it, and like the whole background is brown, so maybe he's like fundamentally in all three universes, like puppet string kind of thing.
I think the biggest one would be the fact that Mikkel hangs himself and has the same scarring that Adam does.
Yes.
It would be visual enough for Jonas to believe.
Exactly.
Like who else would be alive and has a scar like this? It's only me.
Yeah.
Right? Only I have something like that. I saw my dad die, right? But lo and behold, did you actually see your dad die?
Exactly.
Right? Because you saw him running through the woods covered in that black paint stuff.
Right. Whether or not that's hallucination, who knows? Plus, we see in the very first scene of the entire series is Michael hanging himself. That's the first thing that happens, and it cuts away before he's dead.
Yeah.
It cuts away just as he lands himself down, and also when Jonas goes back into the studio and like looks up at the beam that he hanged himself on, the like spot where he hanged himself is directly between the two skylights. So if you say like each skylight is a world, and the beam that connects the two of them is connected by the beam that Michael hangs himself on, and so it's kind of like he's the main guy.
Another thing is the fact that Jonas appears in the bunker and is presented clothes to wear that mimic his clothes that Jonas has. Who's the only other person who knows exactly what Jonas was wearing that day?
Sure.
Mikkel. He even is the one who recommended that he bring the yellow jacket, and then when he sees the yellow jacket, it clearly
registers for him.
Registers in his mind. It imprints in his mind, so it would be something that he remembers up until that point.
Yeah.
The one pushback.
I think I know what you're going to say.
One pushback. Oh, I'm sure you, because we've had this discussion. Is Martha.
Yeah.
Adam seems to have this love for Martha that it would seem strange for a brother to have such deep, intimate thoughts about his sister. Now, I mean, I could see the argument being like, you might just be misreading the scene. He's just thinking about his sister.
Right.
Well, plus it would kind of make sense, too, because Magnus is there. So, like, connecting the whole family back up, like the Nielsen family. If you're arguing that it could be Mikkel.
Oh, I didn't even... That's a fantastic point as to why...
Because Magnus is one of the helpers.
Why the quote-unquote letter from Martha that younger Noah gave to middle-aged Jonas, which, come on, that's not Martha.
It was on the same paper.
Was saying... It was hell yeah.
But
why it was saying, bring Magnus,
yeah,
Franziska, and Bartosz.
Save them from this apocalypse, and then you're gonna have to save.
Well, and Francesca's sister is Elizabeth, who was married to Noah, who was another one of Adam's fathers.
Who is a sister of Agnes, who is the mother of Tronta, who is the father of Ulrich, who is blah blah blah. Everybody's connected, It gets crazy, but yeah, I mean, then exactly. The Mikkel, if in the scene specifically where the people are haunted by the people that they've lost, and you see Adam in his bunker, like looking at the St. Christopher medallion, and then Marta in the white dress from the night that her and Jonas banged for the first time.
Yeah.
He's being haunted by her, and then it cuts to Hannah being haunted by Ulrich, and then Katerina being haunted by Mikkel. And so it would be kind of weird if it was like two lovers, mother-daughter.
Yeah.
Or mother-son. But if it's like siblings, lovers, mother-son, like siblings, lovers, family kind of thing. Not paternal, but maternal, I guess.
Yeah.
There's more like three separate distinct ideas rather than like two of the same idea and then one different idea.
Yeah.
So just from like a compositional standpoint, I guess.
So for me personally, I'm ascribing it about 70% Adam is Jonas.
Yeah.
25% Adam is Mikkel. I'll throw you guys a 5%. It's Bartosz.
Sure.
Just because if season 3 comes out and that's the case, I don't
Yeah.
want to. I don't want to give it a 0% chance and look like a complete
Right.
fool.
Could be anyone with the
well,
alternate reality.
And if Adam is also haunted by having killed Marta, like a brother killing his sister would be enough to like be haunted by that rather than a lover being haunted by a lost lover, you know.
No, that's a great point. That's why I think there's slight there's some validity to that thought.
There also could be some indication because this is mixing two theories, but if the theory of the lady who drowned at the lake is Hannah and that was her St. Christopher necklace or whatever,
right?
Then potentially with it being Jonas, it could be that he's remembering Marta and his mother, so it's like but that's also a pretty big stretch.
I don't know though, because when the Jonas who had been training with Claudia for a year comes through that cave into 2020, he says he has to find his mother and he has to find Marta. So if both of those are the people he's trying to save, he knows that, because we've seen the I don't know that you saw it, Andrew, but the season 3 trailer stuff and some of like the pictures on Baran Bo Odar's Instagram of like Hannah in the 50s with Egon, and she has that St. Christopher necklace on. Okay. So it is confirmed that like she has that necklace. Okay. So the idea of like Bartosz's story of the drowned woman and then the necklace is what washes up on the sand. Maybe Hannah's the one who drowns. Now who knows who does that? Maybe Katerina comes through time and fucks her up. Yeah. That would be great. So. Oh, that would be so cathartic.
Hannah. She's the worst.
Also, who's the guy with the busted up lip in the trailer? That's a big question.
Yeah, that's gonna be like some alt world.
Yeah, that's. I don't want to
specific guy.
Too much
I feel
about
like
that because we could be way off the mark. Yeah. That's somebody we definitely do not know. Does not exist in the world we're aware
all
of.
all three ages of him are shown in
right. Like all three ages of him are working together.
Middle-aged,
similar to like the Noah thing where they have like some guy who seems to be like outside the family in some way, but is like assisting Adam, but then the guy on the other side is also some unknown guy, but he seems to have all three aspects of himself, so maybe he wasn't betrayed by Eve or didn't discover a betrayal, so that Agnes. He lived or whoever
by his family member. He actually ends up killing the Adam of that world, or potentially.
Well,
that would be. Again, this is
highly
theoretical,
or the Eve of that world, if it's like alt Marta,
Yeah.
So I don't have too many more personal theories.
We talked about a lot of them throughout as well.
Yeah, there's little things like who is Peter? Where the fuck does he come from? Who's his mom?
Who did Helga
is Helga his actual
who did
father?
Helga bang to have him?
If he banged anyone,
is he in his correct timeline?
Right.
Because he says that he showed up in 1986.
That he got to Winden in 87.
In 87, so it would have had to be after the December events and stuff.
Because he shows up, because he specifically says to Claudia...
Charlotte's husband...
is Helga's son.
Yeah,
supposedly Helga's son.
We don't know who his mother is.
We don't know who the mother is.
And we don't know where he was before that.
Oh, okay.
We think he's from a different... time,
either the 50s or the 20s.
I don't think he's really.
He could also be.
There's shots of Adam's underground bunker where he has the family tree wall where he has all the pictures of everyone, and he has a couple portraits of specific people, and in the Doppler corner you see pictures of everyone, and I believe everyone's in their youngest self that we know of, and he in his youngest self looks to be in an earlier time because the photo is black and white. There are other characters on the Doppler
Wouldn't
tree.
Peter remember that? Wouldn't Peter remember this?
Well, if he's keeping a secret.
Yeah, he's very secretive. We don't know.
We don't know what his deal
is. What his motives are.
He could be from the alternate world.
You think Peter's been keeping a secret about this the whole time?
Maybe. There's something weird going on with the Doppler family. Just because, Hannah and Elizabeth creating Charlotte and Peter creating Elizabeth creating Charlotte, it just becomes a recursive. Speaking of that, we can get into the bunker
and because they have a technical. their Instagram page has been releasing things every week of those family portraits, and this last one that they haven't released yet of the week of the episodes coming out is the rest of the Doppler family. All they've released so far is Agnes Nielsen, Elizabeth Doppler, and Greta Doppler.
So if you're listening to this, this Peter, where is he from theory, please send us some information.
If you guys have any more info about that.
Yeah, maybe. that would be great. I think Colby, I think that's a very good observation to make, that when you're viewing Adam's family tree in his little bunker area, you see a younger version of Peter, and it's in black and white. I think that's
right. Yeah, all the pictures on that wall, all of the like individual portraits are of people as their youngest self.
Yeah.
And that picture is black and white.
So Alex, you were just saying how there's one more theory you'd like to go into a little bit, which is the people in the bunker, how the people in the future might be the ones who end up coming back in time and starting the civilization of Vinden. Is that something you still ascribe to a little bit?
I do kind of believe that. I think, well, the only reason I really think that is if this whole like Adam and Eve thing, and it's supposed to be like the start of all humanity or whatever, that there must have been like a time before Winden existed.
Yeah.
And we know for sure that the God particle in 2053 dumps Jonas into 1921.
Yeah.
So maybe all these post-apocalyptic people in 2053, this paradise that they're promised is going through the portal and ending up in 1921 or even 1888 and building the town up from nothing. Maybe they go back to 1888 and there's literally nothing there.
Love the idea.
And they build Winden from scratch, essentially.
I love the idea, because that would be so in line with everything that's gone on in the show.
The beginning is the end, right? Yep. Because the apocalypse that destroys Winden is what sends all these people back to start Winden in the first place.
That's interesting.
I think I'm really excited to see if that plays out, and if it does, kudos to you, because that makes a lot of sense, and I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Well, and plus it kind of oh no, I had a thing.
It just closes the loop, basically.
Yeah. Oh, I had one more thing. God damn it. Oh, well, I did want to talk about the wallpaper in the bunker, because we hinted at that, but we didn't actually discuss it.
Okay.
This is just like a fun foreshadowing of Charlotte being Elizabeth's mother, being Charlotte's mother, essentially, because the wallpaper in the bunker is a fox and a rabbit and a hedgehog in repeating patterns, essentially. So we know for sure that Elizabeth has been associated with fox symbolism.
Her hat. Constantly.
Her fox hat.
Her stuffed animal that she sleeps with.
Yes. Ooh. Tangent really quick. When Mikkel goes through the cave, or when like all the lights are flickering and Katerina and Ulrich are in Mikkel's room, there's like the little doll of the skeleton that like matches Mikkel's skeleton sweatshirt thing sitting on his desk, and there's a stuffed fox animal laying next to the skeleton doll. Yeah. So that's an interesting connection between Mikkel and Elizabeth in some weird way.
Yeah.
Which who knows how that'll play out. But anyway, back to the bunker wallpaper. So if we assume the fox is Elizabeth, so the fox is facing straight forward, like face on. The other animal that's facing straight on is the hedgehog, and the hedgehog is holding an apple.
Noah.
And the only person associated with apples is Noah. He's been associated with apples all through season 2.
At least 2 times.
Yeah. And so they're both facing forward, and we know now that Elizabeth and Noah are a married couple, and they're right next to each other. Or they're married. Yeah, married, yeah. They have a baby at least. And now Charlotte, I guess, becomes the rabbit who is below them, but also right next to the fox. So not only is she below the fox, but also next to the fox as well. And so because the fox is there twice in each set of 4. There's like fox and hedgehog and then rabbit and fox. And so the whole rabbit being like reproduction, and so the idea of like cycling reproduction, and the rabbit is facing sideways instead of facing straight on. So there's some symbolism there of like maybe like not moving forward in time, but like looping in time because she
like Charlotte doesn't know as much as Noah and
right. Yeah. She's less informed, but anyway, yeah. I mean, there's the symbolism of the fox, the hedgehog, and the rabbit being
that creepy ass freaking basement,
which we've also seen pictures of. This just plays into the color theory, but the wallpaper is blue in our universe. So there are pictures of the bunker in the alt universe, and it's that same fox, hedgehog, and rabbit wallpaper, but it's yellow.
What?
Yeah.
Where did you see that?
I can't remember where I saw that picture. I think maybe it was posted on the Instagram or something at one point,
like
but yeah, I saw that there was
listeners, keep an eye out for this color symbolism.
Blue, yellow, and red are huge. Green is also big. Green comes up a lot with like Charlotte and Katarina. There's a lot of green. Agnes wears green occasionally.
Well, and also just for the poster for season 3 has Jonas actually wearing a green jacket and Marta wearing his yellow jacket. Right. So it's kind of showing the changing of.
Yeah, and so there's
her yellow jacket.
The jacket never exists. Jacket is.
But then there's this kind of interesting dichotomy of like blue and yellow and red versus blue and yellow and green, and maybe like some combination of blue and yellow leads to a red universe where shit is bad and terrible, or if you do it right, it can lead to this green universe.
Yeah.
And that's like where we want to be going. That's the paradise that we're looking for. Because like the only time we see Agnes in a green dress is when like she's having a nice drink with Doris and like Egon's not around, and so that's kind of an interesting like, oh, that's like a good thing that's happening in that moment. Or like when Katarina is wearing her green jacket is when she's going through the tunnel into the new world at the end of season 2 or whatever, traveling through the tunnel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I so the thing was like I was really focused on the red, blue, and yellow that I kind of didn't pay attention to green at all in season 1, and then I realized like, some characters keep recurring with green, so I might want to keep an eye on that as well for the future. But
I will too, Alex. I was never into this color symbolism theme, and that might just be a thing that's wrong with my way of thinking about it. I never think that they do that stuff on purpose, but a show like Dark, I think.
Well, that's my thing too.
Would be one of the shows that definitely utilize such symbolism to convey information to the viewer.
When the theme phrase for the entire show is everything is connected, like it really makes you want to look at literally everything and try. Like I went through a thing where anytime there was a clock on the screen anywhere, I'd look at what time was on the clock and go to that time in the episode and see if something important was happening at that time.
Yeah.
Rarely it didn't pay off that often, but the main one that actually fully pays off consistently is 11:05.
Yeah.
I mean, it's symbolized with the rider bar. It's the whole minutes to midnight doomsday clock thing. We've discussed this ad nauseum in the last part of this.
So much 11:05 stuff, which is another one where again I didn't even think to look at that.
Yeah.
But it makes so much sense that that's the kind of countdown to midnight, so to speak, coming from both sides.
Yeah.
That it makes almost too much sense to ignore and not see in the season 3 as well.
I was curious, were there any clocks shown on the last episode, the season finale of season 2?
Let me go through my notes and see if there were any good time things.
Because that would be, I would think, would be a time that they would insert one of those.
Yeah, let me scroll through here.
Also, how cool is it that the show is coming out on the day that it shows on a calendar in the show?
Yeah, that's just
oh, dude. I mean,
it is showed to be a Friday in the show, though.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
that is true. There was an issue with like the calendars being
too
like
late.
the wrong days or whatever, but maybe chalk it up to alternate worlds, whatever.
It's
not our world; it's
They
some
weren't
other world.
thinking about leap day
Well,
last
you
year.
want to hear something kind of crazy? In Germany, it will be 1 a.m. or whatever, right after midnight, the 27th, and it will be a Friday in the USA.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So
okay.
Kind of works.
Okay.
Works. The time difference.
I like
A little
that.
bit of a stretch.
Does Germany observe?
Are you sure it was
Daylight
Friday, Andrew,
savings 'cause
or
it's
do they
7
have like a
a.m.
Monday to
release
Sunday
time?
calendar
Season
instead of a
3?
Sunday
That
to
would be
Saturday?
They might have had a Monday to Sunday
Yo,
calendar.
Germany, I think is 6 hours time difference.
Yes.
But that would
5
have
or
been
6.
crazy if it was 7, because it gets released 7 a.m. here.
Yeah, it would
But
have
they're-
been midnight.
They're 7.
Yeah, it's the other way.
Yeah, it's the other way. Giving them too much credit.
I don't know which way the Earth spins. Fuck it. Okay, so there's an 11:05 when right after 2020, Jonas and Claudia are talking in the cave, and he says like, over the last 12 months, you taught me everything about the future and the past, everything that will and has happened. There are two sides out there. Adam and Sigmundus want to create a new world. You and I want to save this one. Claudia asks, who is Adam? And then it cuts to Adam in his bunker staring at a clock as it ticks to 11:05. So that's like a fun one.
I would just like to say, looking on the dark Wikipedia page for fandom, it uses a legend of red, yellow, and green as well.
Oh, really?
I mean, and it's not necessarily related.
Fandom.
It's not necessarily related to the show, but it like because it's making a key for all the travel that happens. So it's like red is time travel unknown dates, yellow is time travel arrival, and green is time travel departure. So I mean, I don't think it's necessarily related to the show's actual concept, but it's an interesting kind of.
So, I think a great way to kind of wind this down, kind of a nice little kickoff, would be to maybe think of something fun. And I was just thinking, if we could each come up with a very unique and maybe kind of funny, I don't know, maybe accurate
Don't put pressure on me.
explanation as to what, yeah, right. Oh, that was really silly. As to why Voller is missing an eye. Let's see if we can ascribe an explanation to that, and who knows? Maybe we're right, because I think that's one of the few things that you cannot predict. So let's have some fun with it with a little sign off.
I got a theory, because we don't know how Gretchen the dog
Yeah.
made it through the tunnel.
Yeah, we do.
shit.
Yeah, we do.
How
Old Claudia took him to.
How did she open that door on her own?
She didn't.
That's never shown.
She had the machine.
That's never shown. No, that's never shown.
She says it.
I think that Voller took Gretchen through the
Oh
the
boy,
portal,
and Gretchen scratched his
and
eye.
Gretchen bit his eye.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Damn, that honestly, that's like somewhat plausible. Probably
If we
not.
disregard what old Claudia says explicitly to her younger self, then yes. I do like that though.
I like it.
I have to give a shout out to the dark subreddit, because they are very gung ho on the Jonas's Adam thing and basically shit on people who think the Mikkel or Bartosz thing. There was even like a poll that they posted, and it was like 90% Jonas and like 5%
Hey, you
Mikkel.
haven't said 70. It's at 70 close. I'm giving you a little more credibility here than Reddit is.
Because I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But no, but so some people like the shit posts to make fun of like the Adam isn't Jonas thing is like that Adam is Gretchen, and that Gretchen is traveling through time and fucking all these people up.
Oh my god!
It's so dumb.
Oh jeez.
So for Voller's eye, well, if we want to buy into the Voller and Alexander are the two murderers from Marburg, then if
You're about to say a plausible explanation.
well, I thought of it. I only thought of it when you brought up the that they could potentially be working together. Is that if we see that Boris Niewald, Alexander Tiedemann, was wounded, was shot.
He was.
Maybe both of them got shot.
Yeah.
Maybe Wooler got hit in the eye and he got hit in the shoulder blade or something.
I think that's a pretty plausible explanation.
I was kind of along that line as well, but I don't want to jump on the same bandwagon. So my guess is actually that Peter is the other dude that was with Alexander Kohler, but I don't have any theories for Wooler.
Idea.
I think
they
he
both
probably
would have
just
showed up around the same time. I do like that.
My guess is that he probably sneezed and like stabbed himself with a pen.
Yeah, classy right there.
Just a bumbling fool.
I'm gonna have to say that Cuz Voller is brothers with the prostitute with the
Yes. Ooh, we didn't actually talk
transsexual
about that.
prostitute.
Yeah.
I think he used to be in the business as well and got a dick in the eye.
Oh, there
and
you
it
go.
was just too much.
And he got out after that.
Got out of the game.
Started being a police officer.
You know, why not? I mean, once you
Turned
lose
life
an eye
around.
to that, you can't go back to that sort of lifestyle.
Oh, so there was one that actually reminded me of the whole. So
She definitely has to have a bigger part. in
Voller
season
and Benny are brother and sister, or brother and sister. Sure.
Originally, bro.
two.
Yeah.
Her name is Bernadette. just
Yes.
saying.
And in the second or third episode of the first season, Enos, as a nurse in the 80s, is being asked by another nurse coworker, "Hey, can you like cover my shift tonight? I have to take Benny to soccer practice." And so the idea is that this nurse, whose name is Donata Kraus, so it's not Voller, because Voller's
Yeah.
first name is Torben.
Yeah.
So if there's Torben and Bernadette, Voller, but they're being raised by Donata Kraus, it kind of plays into my theory that all the women working at the hospital are Sickmundus plants and they're adopting kids from like out of time, essentially, and bringing them to this timeline, maybe.
Don't blow my mind right now, Alex. That's so
That's
much.
nuts.
There's a whole
Well, the inside of her trailer is one of the most colorful things in the entire show, too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because the whole show has a pretty bleak color scheme, and inside
Yeah.
her trailer has pinks and yellows. And
Yeah, that's mind blowing.
Yeah, but I mean, I think, well, especially with the whole Erna in 1921 takes in strays, and so like she raises Noah and Agnes, but they're potentially like orphans, and if Voller and Benny are both orphans as well, and like we don't know the origins of Peter
or Sickmundus.
or
we don't
Helga,
know what
I
the
guess we
actual
know that.
plan of Sickmundus is. I mean, it might have been started
Yo, is there-
by Erna or by those people to like take in these strays.
Is there somebody in Sickmundus with an eye patch? Did we miss that?
No, I don't think
there's
so.
not.
Okay.
I was just I was just
Okay.
looking at a
Two-
picture that was
two.
like guessing who the people of Sickmundus were.
Oh yeah,
And there was like thoughts of like,
I think a lot of those background people are probably going to be like alt-world people
Yeah.
potentially.
oh, you think? Okay.
Because we don't recognize any of them in any way. Oh, I mean, like one of them kind of looks like young Charlotte, which would be interesting, and one of them kind of looks like
Well, it's going to
Another
be
guy.
Magnus, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, the main people
we
are-
already know, but I think the other people, you're totally right,
yeah.
are alt-world people.
There was theories that Hannah was one of them, but
Oh, like one of the older ladies
in the
was
back,
maybe
yeah.
Hannah. That could be
and
interesting.
Doris, and one was potentially Doris because we don't know anything about Doris after 50s.
Right.
Yeah.
All we know is that she
Or
basically
Agnes, but-
leaves Egon for Agnes, and they steal his house, and he moves out.
Yeah.
Yo, who is Hannah's mother? We don't know that either.
That's a very good question.
Alex said, "Oh no! You said that was Katarina's mother."
Yeah,
potentially.
Katarina's
You know who-
parents.
yeah.
We know Katarina's parents from like Instagram stuff /
the nurse. in
that the nurse from the nurse from the 80s that Egon goes to, who crosses her arms.
arm folded,
Yeah, because she gives her the black eye, which is like the symbolism of, or the parallelism with Greta Doppler, who also crosses her arms angrily like that, and she abuses Helga's ear, so it's kind of a similar like mother abusing child kind of.
Yo, I'm just looking at the photos. I'm calling it right now. Hannah's mother is Agnes.
Ooh.
And
And so Hannah's related
Yeah.
to Tronta somehow.
Hannah's not only related to Tronte, but related to Ulrich
Yeah.
as an aunt. In the same
That'd be a great
manner
parallel.
Martha is related
like
to
that.
Jonas.
I like that.
Everybody's hooking up
I
with
feel
their
like they would
aunts.
reference that Agnes had another kid though, other than Tronta. Although we don't
Well,
really.
but-
Who is Tronta's father?
And is Agnes really Toronto's mom? I mean, not saying that it's
fair.
not, but he says that he was in an orphanage. Where was she for this time, and why was he in an orphanage?
Was the orphanage run by Erna?
All right. I think I'm out. I think I'm out with theories.
Oh, hang on. I got one more.
Okay.
One more, and this one will be the one to go out on because it's barely supported. Although it could work out. That Hannah and Egon, or Hannah and Daniel Convald, are the parents of Alexander Tiedemann / Boris Niewald. The only supporting evidence I really have for this is that Niewald is a portmanteau of Nielsen and Convald. And that's basically all I got on that.
Yeah.
But if Hannah's going back in time and giving birth to kids,
I've seen theories for this too. I've seen theories for this too that say that the 1986-7 version of Alexander Kohler or Alexander Kohler Boris Niewald looks very similar to Egon, the young Egon.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which, I mean, again,
like long face wise, you mean?
Again,
I can
very
see that.
thin, but I have seen theories about that.
Yeah. And they all have kind of like a
my only problem with
Mediterranean
that is
vibe as well.
Yeah. My only problem with that is that she takes on the name Nielsen. So if it was going to be a combination, she would have to bang the
Daniel
Conwald
Conwald,
guy, unless she's going to be like, oh, my name is Conwald, and takes Egon Nielsen.
Right, or she just
Tiedemann names.
Or like because the name that she's going by is Katarina Nielsen, but her real name is Hannah Convald,
which
she
seems a
mashes
little
the two
convoluted.
names together.
But
maybe she just bangs Egon, gets pregnant, and then rolls out on him, and that's why he becomes an alcoholic, because he left his wife for this other lady,
and
even though his wife was leaving him anyway, and then she bails on him too, and so then he's just alone.
Well, because she still has a time machine.
Yeah,
she still has her time machine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I think that's pretty much. I think we've covered most everything. If we missed anything glaring, or even just minor theories that you have, please write into the email.
ajtt.thedarkcast@gmail.com. That's ajtt.thedarkcast@gmail.com.
Darkcast.
please, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we're definitely going to continue this throughout season 3.
So
we'll
our
have some reaction videos for you after
each
the
episode.
Maybe 10-15-minute conversations.
Our plan is on Saturday to all get together and kind of watch an episode, record our thoughts for maybe 10-15 minutes, and then watch another episode, and just kind of do that and get through as much of it as we can,
and try to get them uploaded as fast as possible.
All right, it's gonna be tough.
We're hoping to put these 2 episodes out prior to the third season coming out, but who knows?
I would be remiss to say that if I didn't say, I apologize. If I didn't say that I think Dark Season 3 is going to do a very good job at putting everything together, because so far it's been the most consistently taped show I think I've ever seen, the fewest loopholes. And then last thing, shout out to Amanda, aka Jonas Liebe. She wanted me to give a shout out.
Oh,
I also hope that it ends up well. I've watched far too many shows that don't end up well, so I have skepticism. But from rewatching it, I found a lot of things that I didn't notice the first time, which make me think that it was well planned. So hopefully it will all work out.
Yeah, I read a like non-spoiler season 3 review, and the first line of it was, holy fuck, like that was fantastic, essentially. So like it seems to be like well received critically for the 3rd season, and it sounded like they wrap up all they answer all the questions you could want answered, like for the most part.
Which seems crazy, right?
I can't imagine it, but the person who was writing it was like, this was a straight up mindfuck, and it was absolutely unbelievable, and it was so like rewarding at the end, and everything worked out great. And so he seemed like very happy with the way it ended, and so it's hard for me. That
was a rave review.
I have high expectations.
Yeah.
In the same vein as Chris, I also have a shout out. It's actually to my roommate Rob. I got him to Chef Robbie Bobby on Instagram. He's got all your food porn needs. But I watched the first season, and I'm still in the process of watching the 2nd season with him for the very first time. But he had a lot of thoughts. He picked up on a lot of the Christian imagery and the like the references to God and the Holy Trinity, and that like in one specific scenario they like referred to God and Jesus but like left out the Holy Spirit thing, and he like caught on to that, like, oh, they left out the third aspect of God. And that's the whole like dualism versus a triumvirate style belief of the world. So I thought that was some good input from Rob. So I need to get him to finish the second season before the third one comes out, but we'll see. I think he's still got like 6 episodes.
Oh man, that'll be a photo finish.
Yeah.
All right.
And scene.
So I mean, I guess we'll just wrap that up, and that's the end of the podcast.
Till Saturday.
See you guys Saturday.
Stuff?